A lot of people, they're really interested, from not just your work experience as a kid. What sort of student were you, and how important do you think it is to be a good student?
Well, it just sort of, I hate to say that, but it just sort of came natural.
Yeah.
The two worst grades I ever got, one was in handwriting. In elementary, my handwriting was horrible, and then shop. In my junior year, we had to take shop. I am not a mechanical person. I can't drive a nail in a piece of wood straight. It's just that's not my cup of tea. And basically, I had to take shop. Well, that did not help my GPA let's just say.
Well, I asked that because, especially nowadays, our whole society, to some degree, it seems like you got to be a good student, you got to maximize your GPA, but that's not really, obviously that's not saying you can't be successful also being, a student that tries to maximize your GPA, but there's a lot more to life, a lot more to business than just getting good grades or doing what you're supposed to. I mean, especially in the context of our business, the people that we like working with are as much of like, hey, this is what we need done. They can come in and tell us what needs to be done or what they're going to do by a larger understanding or a broader understanding of what we're working towards.
Right, yeah.
But one other comment that you made about, making money as a kid, I just got to know because similarly, I worked summers at a corn farm that like my grandmother was a part of up in Ohio. And so we would, hypothetically speaking, get paid under the table, cash $3 an hour, whatever the case may be. Thought that was great, at the time, we're rich as kids making but what was that like? Probably different scales of, what you were making, but to kind of like paint a picture, what was the purchasing power like for the money that you were making?
Well, it much better than today. A gallon of gas was probably 25 cents. And that was for a full service. You went in,
they showed up,
they pumped it, they checked your air pressure, they would check your windshield washer fluid, oil level.
They would spray the windshield and clean your windshield.
Yeah, right.
And those were the days. I remember that as a kid. I saw that as a little kid.
Right, because we didn't even think about that. It was. Yeah. Hamburgers were under 25 cents. You go to the movies for probably 40 cents, something like that. Popcorn were probably 10 cents a bag. So the whole level of money was just very, very different. And it had changed, of course, over time with inflation and everything. But you don't always notice it until you actually begin to pay for it,
Right.
It was one thing for my parents to pay for, food and so on. Now that when you get out on your own, then you really begin to notice how it changes.